407 years ago. Okay, it was actually more like 50 years ago, but that's beside the point. President Kennedy introduced an incredibly new and exciting idea called affirmative action. In response to the civil rights laws and guarantees made by the Constitution, this new policy was created to make up for the events that occurred during the fight for equal rights and opportunities, and was designed to create fairness and equality for everyone when involving education and employment. Hello fellow classmates, my opponents, and Mr. Redican. Today we are debating the topic of affirmative action and all that it entails. Our resolution is as follows. Resolve that the United States federal government should abolish the policy of affirmative action in education and employment. The affirmative side may argue that affirmative action is a form of reverse discrimination. By agreeing to this, we are completely being ignorant to significant events in history. Turn your math brains on because I have a problem for you. African Americans have had about a 400-year history on this continent. Sure, it may sound like a long time, but let's break it down. In actuality, 245 of those years were spent in slavery, and 100 of them involved legalized discrimination. Therefore, 400 minus 245 minus 100 equals 55. 55 years. Blacks have had 55 years of that same freedom and equality that, say, the Jews and the Asians had as soon as they stepped foot in the United States throughout the 1800s. To expect the blacks to have created the opportunities for themselves that the others had handed to them in a quarter of the time is absolutely absurd. This is where Jesse and my idea comes in about being underprivileged. To be underprivileged, as defined by Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is to be deprived through social or economic conditions of some of the fundamental rights of all members of a civilized society. If this does not fit into that category of underprivileged, then I certainly have no idea what would. Our opponents may also try to say that affirmative action solely acts to put these discriminated groups into positions in education or employment that they are not suitable for. In this case, they would be taking positions away from the many more qualified, more educated, and of course more white people who strive to obtain those same positions. However, this is completely not true. According to the U.S. Commerce Department, there are 1.3 million unemployed black civilians and 112 million employed white civilians, as stated in the U.S. Bureau of the Census in 2000. Thus, even if every unemployed black worker in the United States were to displace a white worker, only 1% of whites would be affected, states understandingprejudice.org. Therefore, even with affirmative action in place, there have not been fair enough results thus far to eliminate it. In reality, if anything should be revised about this federal policy, it should be made stricter and the current quotas should be increased because of the previous statistic alone. In the workplace, gender is more prevalent when it comes to the necessity of affirmative action. Despite the progress that has been made, the playing field is far from level. Women continue to earn 76 cents for every male dollar. This quote, also found on understandingprejudice.org, shows that the federal policy in existence today needs to stay as is. Even with the policy in place, affirmative action is not doing enough. With this being said, a recent Supreme Court case at the University of Michigan that George just explained from 2003 took place because of the admission system. In this case, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of eliminating the quotas at the college, or the certain numbers or fractions that the institution must have involving minorities, but maintaining the policy of taking racial and gender background into account in the admissions process. This is exactly what we, the negative, are proposing. Our slogan for this issue is that affirmative action supports the fraction. This, in further detail, means that we support affirmative action and all that it involves. Jesse and I believe that it is necessary to have this policy so that there are no male or certain racial dominance in any elite institutions and will prevent such from happening. Affirmative action exists to provide opportunities for minority groups that would not normally be possible. Although the affirmative may feel that it is a form of reverse discrimination and may propose that aspects of people that cannot be changed should not be taken into account when discussing admissions, we feel that this federal policy is necessary to the well-being of our society. The minority students with advanced degrees are the backbone of the emergent black and Hispanic middle class. Successful black and Hispanic professionals serve as the role models to nephews and nieces and are available to advise a neighbor or a family friend on medical, legal, or financial matters. They can serve as strong threads in a fabric that binds their own communities into the larger social fabric as well, states Deborah Humphreys. Not only do these underprivileged people provide examples for all those around them, they live on as success stories for anyone to aspire to achieve. Overall, affirmative action is a federal policy that needs to remain as is. There is no reason to abolish it because it truly does so many more good things for people than it does to hinder them. In both education and employment admissions, it is truly a necessary factor to prevent racial or gender dominance in a society overall. Remember, affirmative action supports the fraction. Thank you and vote negative.